Live-o spaghetti-o.
That's right. Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Give me just a second, guys. 'Cause I want to get in as quick as I can.
Yeah. So you're gonna go straight to the topic, like at hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna find out what happened 159 years ago to die,
yeah.
as the title says. What
Yep.
it looks like. Yeah.
I just want to wait and see if maybe a couple people come in first before I get started.
Yeah, like Elsa and Country Fan,
Yeah.
and hopefully Roberta gets his ass in here.
Yes. I don't even know if he's home yet.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I had plans yesterday, and then he has plans today.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Well, when I talked about doing this stream, I had forgot that I had to help my brother-in-law. But
Oh
hey,
yeah,
Justin,
so,
how's it
so
going?
technically you had plans today too.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey Justin.
I didn't think my plans would take that long either, though.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It happens.
Yeah, that's the way the
I'm
cookie
not complaining
crumbles.
about it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Just tired. That's all. But trying to wait. Says there's two people watching. There's only one comment. So
Yeah. One of
I'll wait and see if maybe that other person comes in. How you doing, Justin?
Oh, it's Elsa. Hey, Elsa.
Elsa, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, now there's two people here, so you want to start now? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, I think. Hold on. Let me give me.
Yeah, doing good, Justin.
I might as well.
Oh, then your phone rings.
Yeah. Just a notification. Okay. So anyway, everybody knows that Monday is the 4th of July. America's Independence Day, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of years, America has, several wars and stuff have put our freedom up to the test, and Independence Day, don't get me wrong, should be celebrated, should not be forgotten. But sometimes I think that in lieu of Independence Day, there's days before Independence Day that matters too. That a lot of people tend to forget. Okay, so I'm going to kind of explain this the best way I can, and I'm going to kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of like say it, but you'll get what I'm saying. So, we're doing okay, Elsa. At least I am. I'm tired, but I'm here.
Yeah, he's tired as fuck.
So basically, I'm gonna get into it, right? So today is July 1st, 2022. Okay. 159 years ago today, July 1st, 1863. One great nation, or actually one nation, two great armies, collided on what's considered now hallowed ground in a small Pennsylvania town called Gettysburg. Okay? For 3 days, it was a babestic, titanic struggle that changed the course of American history. Not only did it change the course of American history, it changed the outcome. I'm not saying it's the total made a difference, but it was one of the outcomes that made it changed the Civil War from the aspect of to because see up to that point the South had won every battle and had won every of the Civil War except for one, and that was the tie at Antietam. Okay, um, Robert E. Lee believed that if he could gain victory in the North, okay, that the war would be over. The significant thing about Gettysburg is if you look at a town, the town of Gettysburg, that's like 4 or 5 roads that come in to that one area. Like you can come off the interstate from it, you can do all these little things. So back in those days, they had all these roads that commerce right into Gettysburg. So if you were going down the Shenandoah Valley or the is something turnpike there, I forgot the name of it, but anyway, you were bound to land in Gettysburg, and that's what happened. The battle, no one really wanted to fight in Gettysburg, but what happened was the South was coming up the road. The North saw it happen. They engaged in battle. Well, you know, now our men are fighting. We're going to stay. We're going to entrench, and we're going to fight. Okay. So basically, the South won the first day. Okay. They won the first day. Now, you have to realize something. Gettysburg was a 3-day fight. It took over 53,000 lives in 3 days. Okay. The South won the first day, but they lost. But they were slow to react to Lee's commands, so they let the Union Army take the high ground, which become a big deal the first, the second, and third day. Because when Lee tried to take the hill, take Seminary Ridge and Little Round Top and all that on the second day, the Union held him off. And then he thought that on the third day, the grand attack there, a mile charge over open ground, right up the heart into the Union Army. And he had like 15,000 men in these oblique looking formations marching across a field of open ground. Yankees cannons. I mean, they're just shooting fireball. They're just shooting cannonballs. And they're just landing. They're just blowing up people. Like they lost probably like 3/4 of their men within less than an hour. Right. Or however long that battle took. What I try to get people to understand is this. Now, people ask me sometimes or don't understand, why do I talk about Gettysburg so much? Especially me being a Southerner, right? Well, you have to look at things, okay? Now, a lot of Southerners would kind of be mad at me for saying this because a lot of the Southerners still hold that contempt all these years later that the South should have won the war. And some people were mad at Robert E. Lee for surrendering because they wanted to keep fighting. But at the time, the Confederate Army was so depleted at the time that, and they had nothing, man. They were just barely hanging on. No wonder Lee had no choice but to surrender to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The whole thing, right, was if If Lee would have broke the Union Center at Gettysburg on the third day, the road behind them actually led to Washington D.C. And Lee's intent was, if he breaks that line and the Union Army surrender and take off running, he was going to march down that road straight to Washington D.C. and take the formal surrender of President Abraham Lincoln. And the South would have won the war. America would look a lot different today. Now, people going to tell you over the years that the Civil War was fought for all these different reasons. I'm going to tell you, unless you can dig up the dead and talk to them, you'll never know what the young men, boys, and even older men fought in that war truly for. You're never really going to know, right? You can speculate what it is. Like I said, some people believed it was slavery. Most people believe it was about states' rights. Some people believe it was about freeing the slaves. Some people believed it was about reserving the Union. You got all these things, but no one is ever really exactly correct. I think the biggest misconception of the Civil War was that it was fought over slavery. If you really look at it, there was a whole lot more complex issues behind that, and whether people want to tell you that or not, slavery was doomed anyway. It wasn't going to last, and whether the Civil War would have ended slavery or whatever, which it really didn't. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution ratified slavery, but the truth is that I believe that because, see, when you hear people talk about Gettysburg, most people can't tell you the date it was fought and the year that it was fought. All they know is it was one of the biggest battles of the Civil War, which it was. Probably the bloodiest battle on American soil ever. I mean, you got to think about 3 days, 53,000 people lost their lives. That was more than the Vietnam War. Okay? I mean, bodies literally littered the ground in Gettysburg. Now, I have been to Gettysburg. I have stood on those grounds. I have walked those grounds. And I have seen places that soldiers like stayed and stuff like that. It does something to you. It really does. It makes you put things in perspective. Now, I'm going to say this, and most Southerners would hate me for saying this, but if the South would have won the war, it wouldn't have been a good thing. Because what it would have done was it divided this nation, and we would have just been another third world country. Okay? But the South lost for a reason. It just wasn't meant to be. Now, do I think that the South should have stood up for themselves and everything against the federal government? Yeah, I do. People want to sit here and call people from the South traitors and Confederates traitors and stuff like that. Well, all we were doing was standing up to the tyrannical Northern federal government that was trying to oppose everything onto the South that the South didn't want. You know, get into a little bit more of it. People ask me sometimes. Here's the funny thing. One of my second ex, the one that was from New York, she asked me why did the Southern people have so much animosity against Yankees? Why why do they treat Yankees the way they do? I said, well, you have to understand something. I said, unless you're from the South, you don't understand. I said, when that war was fought, okay, the Northern Army used tactics that the South never used. They burnt people's homes, they destroyed their crops, killed their animals. Hell, they even raped some of their women. They did all kinds of crazy shit just to stick it to the South and to try to get the South to do the surrender, all that stuff. I mean, Sherman burnt Atlanta to the ground. I mean, so when Southern people came back home from the war, the ones that made it, they had nothing to come home to. And then, on top of it all, now that we were one nation again, they wanted to come down here and oppose their northern ways and do reconstruction in the South. And Southern people just didn't. They were like, look, we don't want what you're offering us. We are fine the way we are. Yeah, we may have to pick up from a war that we just had and lost, but we'll be okay. See, the South took. The funny thing about it was the Civil War took a lot more toll on the South than it did the American Army. I mean, the Union Army, right? See, the complicated part about it was by the time Gettysburg had happened, okay, which you're looking at about the war was like 2 years in at that time, okay, it was hard to recruit people and get them to believe and to support a war that had been raging for 2 years, and some people may not agree with what you were fighting for, but also maybe even to a certain extent kind of fight a losing cause, right? See, people don't understand. See, the reason why the Union Army was so easy to replenish their numbers was you take immigrants off the boats that were coming in here, and saying, hey, okay, welcome to America. You want freedom? Fight for it. They'd hand them a uniform and send them off, and a gun and send them off to battle. You think about the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of the Irish Brigade. There were 2 Irish brigades that fought in the Battle of Fredericksburg, one for the South and one for the Union. And they were pretty much the same. I mean, when each one saw the other across the thing from the battlefield, they almost kind of like just stopped and like saluted each other because they knew that they were Irish. They were blood. I mean, in a way, they were countrymen, and so it was a brother against brother war. It was a thing that tore that made all the Civil War was the growing pains of a nation. Okay. And like with the Confederate flag, people can say it's racist all they want, but it was a sign of rebellion. Why you think the Confederates were called rebels? Because they rebelled against the federal government and the Northern government, and broke off and become their own. But that's just kind of all the things. But the thing I wanted to say was when people are out this weekend and think of July 4th, and there's nothing wrong with that because it is our Independence Day. But you got to think about those people that sacrificed everything they had in any war that we had whether it was the Civil War, the American Revolution, the War of 1812, the War of, the World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, Desert Storm, you know, Iraqi freedom, all this other stuff, all these wars that we've ever fought, freedom don't come free, okay? And freedom comes at a price. And I just think that, like, that day, those 3 days changed the course of a war. They changed the course of a nation. Because I honestly believe that if the South would have won Gettysburg, we would be, you would have probably the United States of America and then the Confederate States of America. Some people believe, well, if the South had won, would we still have slavery? I doubt it. People think that, so the Southern way of life will change after the Civil War. And Southerners finally, for the first time, had to, well, not all Southerners. Let's put it to you like this: those fat-ass rich plantation owners, the ones that were able to own hundreds of slaves or whatever, yeah, their lives changed. The normal, everyday people that lived in the South who couldn't own slaves, didn't want to own slaves, couldn't afford a slave if they wanted one, life really didn't change for them. But see, I've always told people that being Southern, it's just not where you're from. It's a way of life. It's who you are. It's ingrained in our DNA. I've told people, like, being Southern is, I don't know, it's hard to explain, okay? And in the South, like, especially like South Carolina, I think Southern, a lot of the Southern traditions really run heavy in the South, because a lot of people don't know it, but South Carolina was the first, if I'm not mistaken, South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. And Virginia was sort of one of the last. But it's a tough. This makes me wonder when and how slavery ended over here in South Africa. See, here's something that people don't understand too, right? This is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but it's the same thing. The country of Liberia, right? You know that Liberia was formed to have a place for free black people to go after the Civil War, because Abraham Lincoln believed that the only way the northern people were ever going to be happy and was ever going to have anything for them to colonize themselves. So the country of Liberia was formed by the United States to have somewhere for blacks to go after the Civil War. Okay. But the truth be told about it was when you think about all this complexity of what it is, when you think about that day or those 3 days, in general, right? I think about those men who did Pickett's charge on the third day, who stood behind a thing of trees. There was supposed to be this big old See, what was supposed to happen was the Confederate battery, which was their cannons, shot a bunch of cannonballs over and was supposed to break up the line, break up the wall a little bit, kind of scatter the Union Army, and then they were going to emerge from the trees, march across a mile of open ground, get in front of the Union Army, attack, make them run, and make them scatter even more, and the victory was going to be for the South, right? Well, problem happened was that a lot of the cannons that shot overshot. A lot of them never really landed in the places they want to go, so it didn't really have the effect that the Confederates wanted. So when they did Pickett's charge and when they marched a mile across open ground, okay, I mean, here's cannonballs just flying out of the air, landing, just blowing fucking people up 5, 10, 15 at a time, you know, and here they are, just still marching across that field because they believed that they could beat the Union and win the day. But see, the whole reason why this battle is so important in the Civil War is because not too long before that, General Stonewall Jackson died. He was Lee's number one in command behind Robert E. Lee. If Lee told him to do something, he done it. Or if Lee told him to do something and Jackson was like, look, I think maybe, we should do it this way or do it. Lee would listen to him. He was Lee's most entrusted general. Well, after he lost him and they fought in Gettysburg, a lot of people don't know this, but Robert E. Lee was sick in Gettysburg. He was suffering from a heart attack. Okay. But they didn't know what a heart attack was back in those days. So they gave him, I think it was quinine or something like that. So and that also brought on severe dysentery and stuff like that. So he was sick. And the problem with Lee's commanders were they thought that without Jackson, they believed if Jackson would have told him, look, let's fall back, let's go fight somewhere else, Lee would have listened to him. But Lee was like, no, look, we got engaged here, we fought, we won the first day, we're going to stay and fight. Well, here's their commanders, because his generals and stuff because they didn't really want to fight. They drugged their ass after when he would give them a command to do something, they would drag their ass and go do it. The problem was if everything would have went off like a hitch the way he asked them to, you would probably see a different side of history today. Like, I don't even know if we would be talking to each other because this nation would probably be so divided that, it was, who knows, they may even would have put up a wall between the American states and the Confederate States. Who knows? The war would be, I think this nation would be a lot different had the South won the war, right? But it makes a big significance because I think, honestly, it may have been the turning point of the war. Do you think there would have been slavery if? I don't know. I don't know, Elsa. It's hard to say. Probably. I don't know that you would have had it as if it would have been like such a big thing. Like there was. I don't know that so many people. There would have been so many slaves in this country for so long, but I probably believe they still would have been some. But it was just so easy for them to go get them and bring them back. And if their own people sold them out, then you know what you really gonna do? You know, um,
Because people are always blaming the people owning slaves, but they never blame the people who actually sold them. That's what
yeah.
Elsa said.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, right? Yeah, I mean, cause see, they don't want to blame the people who sold them into slavery. You're right, Elsa. They don't. Um, People don't want to hear that. And the ones that do hear it, they try to make some kind of way to justify it. So, oh well, it wasn't the way people say it was, and blah blah blah, and all that. Right? It's a complicated thing to get into. But the reason why I think
Yeah, but what if slave
if
trade?
the South had won the war, I believe there would have been another civil war after that.
Damn.
Because you got to think about something. Round about the time before the Civil War had started, the Northern people had freed their slaves, but they freed them, but they didn't always tell people that they freed them. So it was like a lot of Northern people still had slaves, but they pretty much banned slavery or abolished slavery in the North, but it wasn't really wide known and spread. So some Northern people still had slaves at that time. Here's the kicker to it all. See, a lot of the countries at that time had started banding together and not buying raw materials from countries that owned slaves at the time. And because basically the South, the rich South, had made its living or its power through cotton and stuff like that, through slave labor, right? Okay, well, a lot of countries were starting not to buy. Do I think if the Civil War would have never happened, do I believe slavery would have abolished? Yeah, I just think it would have took a little bit longer, because eventually the South was doomed anyway. I believe that. I believe that eventually, I think it probably would have lasted probably to the 19th century or the 20th century or whatever it is. That's what I meant, the 20th century, the 1900s. And I kind of think slavery would have been abolished then. But I do believe. See, the whole thing is this, right? And that's just like I'll prove something to y'all. You know how just a little bit back, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and sent Roe v. Wade back to the states to let the states decide on how they wanted to deal with abortion, right? See, that's what the Southern government was talking about the whole time. The federal government shouldn't have the power that it has. The state should be allowed to be able to govern things on how they see fit. Okay, that's just like, I'll give you an example. Like, with some states want to legalize marijuana for recreational use, some states don't. Some states want to do this, and some states want to do that. Some states don't. It should have been left up to the states to decide what they wanted to do, not having the federal government say you're going to do this and you're going to do that. The Constitution was written for a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not the government over the people all the time. The federal government was supposed to kind of be like a referee between the states, kind of like. It was never really supposed to take and choke hold the whole nation and make them do whatever the hell they wanted them to do. Okay. Also about how Harriet Tubman, who the 300 slaves freedom using the Underground Railroad. Yeah. The whole thing about it was that was just like with slavery. A lot of people believe that it should have been left up to the states. If a state wanted to have slaves, fine. If the state didn't want slaves, that was fine too. It should have been left up to the states to decide. Instead, the federal government was trying to tell you, no, this state's not going to be a slave state. This state's going to be a free state. And this state is going to, like, have these regulations put on it, this or whatever. Because, see, you got to think about something. About that time, we were expanding west. The Oklahoma territory had opened up. A lot of people fled then. That's why they call them Sooners. That's how Oklahoma Sooners got their name. Because they were like some of the they wanted to get out there so early that people called them Sooners as soon as they could. As soon as like the Oklahoma territory opened up, people were fleeing, going out west. Okay. But see, the whole problem was the federal government wanted to regulate those states. And what they wanted to do was, like, because you got to think about it, the South was agricultural. It wasn't, you might have had a few cotton gins here and there, but the North was all industrial, building factories and stuff like that, and building, manufacturing and doing all these things that were, all these jobs and stuff like this. The South was agriculture. And see, the North wanted to tell, so say I give you an example like Texas or Oklahoma or somewhere like that. The South wanted, the Northern government wanted to be like, well, I think this state should be a free state and it should be an industrial state. Like, why should this state should be non-agricultural or whatever it is? And the Southern people's like, who gives you the right to tell a state what they can and can't do? That's where the states' rights thing came in. It was about the power of the Northern government over the states, or the federal government over the states, right? See, a lot of people believe that the Southern government and the Confederate people and the Southern people were always the gatekeepers to the Constitution, because they believed they were anti-big government. That's how they felt. Hi, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Oh yeah. Hey, Chris.
See, that's kind of what Donald. See, that was the mindset that Donald Trump had. Donald Trump believed that the federal government shouldn't be as big as it was, this big government thing. That's why he was trying to regulate a lot of the stuff that he was doing and giving the power back to the people and back to the states the way it was originally supposed to be. That was another reason they hated Donald Trump. You see, so to think about this and put it all in perspective, right? If the South had won the war, this country would be a different place. Do I think it? There might be some good and come out of it, and there probably would have been a lot of bad that come out of it. But you have to look at the overall picture, okay? We would have had a different independent, maybe 2 independent days, if you kind of look at it, right? Depending on what part of the country you lived in. If the South had won, probably July 3rd would have been their Independence Day, because that would have been, or whatever day that they would have finally got to Washington, D.C. and took the formal surrender of Abraham Lincoln, would have probably been the Confederate States Independence Day, because they won the war. Okay, so depending on what part of the country you lived in, or part of the United States you lived in, would have been what Independence Day you would have celebrated. Because they want the power for themselves. They don't care about power and don't give a damn about the people. Exactly, Elsa. I'm a pretty good country fan. I'm tired, but other than that, I'm pretty good. But the reason I say that, and the reason I wanted to do this stream, was because I believe that times like that and battles like this and things, I kind of think, or people are forgetting about. Like, you don't hear people talk about January 1st. You never hear people talk about, oh, guess what? Today was the day they fought the Battle of Gettysburg. People don't even think about it. All they think about is getting prepared for the 4th of July. But if you think about it, right, it was kind of a war against a war of independence. It was, both armies were fighting for a cause they believed in. They were fighting for freedom they believed in. Okay, so either way, both armies were still fighting over a freedom that they wanted. It's just that the Union Army succeeded and won and kept a nation in whole. Okay, but no matter how you look at it, they were still Americans that died in that war and died in that battle. And no matter how you want to toss it and turn it, at the end of the day, we were fighting for an independence. We were fighting to keep what we had. It's just we were fighting each other. You have to think about something. When people say, well, if you think about something, you know how I always say history repeats itself? Okay, think about this. A lot of the things that happen in this country have already happened more than once. I'll give you an example. 1700s, a lot of events led up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which spurred on the American Revolution, which led to America's independence. Okay. We wanted to succeed, pretty much, start our own nation and get out from under a tyrannical government. Okay. Think about that. All those years later, the southern states did the same thing. Okay. Right? Just like I say, history repeats itself. Fast forward all these years later, January 6th, it was a group of people who believed that the government had rigged an election and was lying to the American people, and people believed that it was tyranny, and they were fighting against tyranny, so they stormed the Capitol. Now this country wants to call that an insurrection. Guess what? Rewind. 1700s. Samuel Adams stormed a bunch of British ships throwing tea overboard. It's called the Boston Tea Party. Guess what? That was an insurrection because they were fighting against taxation without representation. They were fighting against a lot of things. They were sticking it to a tyrannical government who was suppressing them and putting all these tax and laws and everything on them, right? And telling them, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you know, we should have a say in everything you do, right? Even your elections and stuff like that, right? Think about it. History repeats itself. So you have to think about, when I think of Independence Day, I can't help but think about the Battle of Gettysburg and what it done for this nation, how it changed this nation, how things changed because of that. Because when we lost that battle, okay, we were never the same after that. We lost a lot of men. I mean, we probably lost 15,000 men in Pickett's charge alone, right? The third day of the battle. The South couldn't replenish itself like that anymore. So by the time General Lee surrendered at Appomattox, they were starving, they were out of ammunition, they were barely hanging on. A lot of the uniforms that the soldiers were having were falling off of them. Most of them didn't have no shoes. Hell, some of them probably muskets didn't even fire at the time. And Lee couldn't do that to his men any longer. And when Lee found out that the underhanded tactics that the Northern government was doing, replenishing in its army by bringing immigrants off the boat and slapping a uniform on them and throwing a musket in their hand and sending them off to war to fight, Robert E. Lee's like, I'd have never surrendered. I'd have kept fucking fighting. Because he believed in a cause so great. But see, the problem was when the problem was our supplies had got cut off. See, you got to think about something. All the guns and cannons and everything that the Union Army had were manufactured up north. We were getting our stuff from like France and stuff like that, and stuff like that. So all our stuff were coming from overseas. Then it had to become on either actual trains or wagon trains to us. Then we would have to send it out to replenish the army. Well, when our supply lines got cut off, that was it. What regiments had what they had was what they had. Think about something. Lee surrendered in 1865 at Appomattox. Gettysburg was July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. So for another year and a half, the Southern Army fought on. And see, here's another thing that the biggest misconception people are going to tell you. Right after the Battle of Gettysburg, when the Northern Army really secured their victory and proved that, hey, look, we're in this war and we're here to fight and we're going and thing. when that sort of kind of started that was what jumped off the Emancipation Proclamation, which here's the thing, the war wasn't even over.
What the fuck?
Somebody
like
whatchamacallit,
It's like a spam thing.
yeah. Somebody blocked this person.
Oh yeah, somebody
Somebody with a wrench or something.
like
Right.
how do these weirdos just end up in our stream?
But anyway, so because of that, that's why things turned out the way they did. But I believe that because of those 3 days, okay, to change the course of history forever, and change the Civil War at that time, and that's why I think sometimes I feel like that when we celebrate Independence Day, we don't celebrate the right things at all. Like I actually think that if more people knew about, like, here's the funny thing that people don't understand. They could tell you, oh yeah, Gettysburg was one of the battles that changed the course of the Civil War, and it all up north and all that. What people can't tell you is the date it was fought and the year it was fought. They know it was the 1860s because that was when the Civil War was. But they can't give you the dates because most people don't fucking know, because they don't. It's not significant in people's minds enough to think about that, right? So when I realized the other day, I said, oh, "Damn, like tomorrow is July 1st, the Battle of Gettysburg. That was when it happened." So I just believe that things like that are overlooked, and there shouldn't be. And I think more people should talk about it, and I think that more people should let it be known that there were a lot more greater sacrifices made that people forget all about. And so when you celebrate your Independence Day, think about those people who put their lives on the line, not just in World War One and World War II and Vietnam and Desert Storm and all that stuff in the American Revolution. The Civil War counted too, and so did some of those battles. And no matter how you want to look at it, that was a fight for freedom too. I'm sorry if I talk too much and you really didn't get to say anything, Alvin. So if you want to say, if you got some things you want to say and talk about, that's cool. If I felt like if I felt like I was like holding you back or something, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way or whatever.
But to be honest, I don't really have much to say on this because I don't know. Not really. I guess I feel like I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to I guess the history and everything. So you even blew my mind, well, because I had no idea that's how Oklahoma Sooners got their name.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll be honest with you, I basically live in Oklahoma Sooners alley territory. I see people wearing Oklahoma Sooner shirts all the time where I live. So that's really right close to home. So I was like, finally, you're talking about something I actually know a little bit about, but didn't know about. So that kind of threw me off. But but I've never really been like a big sports fan anyway. So
See, that's why, like, when you see the Oklahoma
yeah,
football team, right? When they come out
yeah,
at the beginning of the game, you see that
yeah,
covered wagon going across the field, and
yeah,
like kind of like somebody riding along beside of it, because that's what happened when the Oklahoma territory opened up like that. People rushed
yeah.
as soon as they could to go, to go claim land there. That's why they called them the Sooners, and that's how they got their name. And
Yeah.
that's why, and it just stuck, the Oklahoma Sooners. And so
Yeah, yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
you know, um, so it was, and I wanted to say, I wanted to say one other thing to kind of tie into this.
Okay.
When you look at the American West, okay, I've always told people three things really set up, really opened up the American West. It was the end of the Civil War, the railroad, and the discovery of gold. Okay, those were the
Yep.
three things that set the American West on the course that it set it on. Because people were out to go find gold. People wanted to claim land that no one else claimed to start a new life, especially after the Civil War, when a lot of people had nothing to go home to.
Yeah.
And, you know, people were like, hey, let's take this train west and see where it takes us. And some people never came back.
Well,
You know, um,
that actually makes a lot of sense because I know a lot of like pop culture, like things in pop culture reference like whenever they reference like the old west or something. They always reference about people going to look for gold or people going to a certain land and basically trying to claim it as their own or something. Like
yeah,
they discover this land, and then of course like the railroads. Like one of the most notable is actually some old classic Bugs Bunny cartoons. Bugs Bunny reference that kind of stuff a lot back in
yeah.
some of the older cartoon classics. So that's the thing. That's what's so crazy. I don't know much about history, but what I do know about history is probably what I learned from either something in a movie or some old cartoon that I watched when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So
But the funny thing about those times too,
yeah,
Alvin, that a lot of people don't realize either,
yeah,
is during that time, most of the West
yeah,
like that wasn't really, a lot of those states wasn't really considered states yet. They were considered territories. So like, so say for instance, you were on a cattle drive from like Texas to say Montana, right?
yeah,
When they were talking about like going through the plains and going through, let's say like the Wyoming territory or whatever it is. See, a lot of those states like that hadn't officially become states yet.
yeah,
Say, like you take for instance, like South Dakota, right?
yeah.
When Wild Bill Hickok got murdered in Deadwood, South Dakota, it wasn't even considered. It wasn't even a state because the, the Dakota Territory was all Indian reservation. The only reason Deadwood even happened is because somebody found gold in the Black Hills. So Deadwood popped up as a mining town, and so everybody rushed there to go find gold. And so when Wild Bill Hickok was murdered, and then they actually was able to find the person and bring him back and have him stand trial, they really couldn't do a whole lot to him because South Dakota wasn't a state at that time. I think it became a state a little bit after that. But you got to think about something. A lot of because a lot of that territory at the time was still Indian land, was still Indian reservation, was still like when you would hear like Navajo country or Cherokee country or whatever, because a lot of that land was supposed to have been gave to the Native Americans through treaties that they supposed to had with the United States government. But what killed a lot of that was some fucker would find gold somewhere, and so a mining town would pop up, and the next thing you know, oh well, you know, a bunch of people have flocked there. This has become a state, and what happens? The Indians get pushed more further west. So there goes another reservation that becomes American land or whatever. So back in those days, see, like, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but when I was watching that show Hell on Wheels, like when they sent that railroad through Wyoming at the time, Wyoming was still considered like territory. It wasn't even really considered a state. About that time when that train went through Wyoming and kind of started setting, people started settling here, then Wyoming become a state. See, a lot of that stuff, man, because you think about like Texas, for instance. Texas, the reason it's called the Lone Star State is because it held out so long becoming a state of the United States. See, Texas for a long time was kind of considered its own country in a way. I mean, it was part of the United States. It was like, but it really wasn't a state. It was more like a territory. And it was that way for a long time. And then Texas finally decided, okay, yeah, we're going to become a state. And that's why they call it the Lone Star State, is because they waited so long to become, a part of the United States. They held out for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I was also going to say that actually makes kind of sense because Texas is like one of the biggest states, if not the biggest, anyway. So
yeah,
I mean, because I know Texas is pretty big. I can't remember which is the biggest state. It's either between.
I think it's Alaska.
I was gonna say it's either Texas or Alaska.
But
one of us. But wasn't Alaska like one of the very last states to ever become a state?
Yeah, I think Hawaii and Alaska was. But then I think, what is it? Is it like Puerto Rico or something that's like a United States territory or something? So ain't that like something like that?
Oh yeah, Hawaii. See, that's what's so confusing about certain states or countries that are like kind of like an island. Sometimes it confuses me because it's either like North American territory or it's South American territory. So even some of those things have blown my mind before.
Yeah. But anyway, so Alaska's the biggest state, but Texas is the biggest state that's actually in the United States. That's actually, like right there, all bunched in with all the states. But I mean, that's just a little bit of what I wanted to say, because I think about this a lot, and I think about what it was like for those people, because people don't understand something. The Civil War was a brother against brother war. And when they say that, that's what they meant, because you got to think about something. Here we are, like, they were families who were torn apart and never had anything to do with each other again because of the Civil War, because some members of the family decided you know what? I'm staying loyal to the United States. I'm fighting for the Union. And someone went out to fight for the Confederacy, and it tore families apart. And some families never even, like, rekindled. They never had anything to do with each other again after that. And so it really was a brother against war. It was family against family, and you know, so if you think about it, I mean, there was a lot more. There was a lot more at stake than people realize. And the thing I hate is how nowadays when they teach people stuff, they don't go in and teach the core of what it really meant to be, what a lot of this stuff meant. It's just, oh, here's a civil war. It was fought for this reason, blah blah blah. You know, they was these are the main battles and blah blah blah. And that's all the fuck they teach you anymore. They don't teach you that. Do you realize that Gettysburg was one of the turning points of the Civil War? They don't teach you that shit anymore. It's just like, okay, there it is. And like Independence Day, really, honestly, man, Independence Day is not even really about independence anymore. It's just people wanting to fucking grill out and being off of work and drink beer.
Oh yeah, well that's one thing I've noticed. Like, I don't know. Every time Independence Day rolls around, it's basically all about cookouts and fireworks.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it kind of like. Yeah, and people getting to take the day off, like day off work.
So yeah, I just thought that would be something kind of interesting to tell people, because I believe that those things like that and those people have been forgotten, and it's time that these people start being remembered and thought of again. And these battles and these significant pieces of time in our history that forever changed the course of who we are. And
Actually, yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, the sad thing is, I feel like as time has gone on, even though a lot of holidays started off of like something historical, I feel like as time moves forward and like time moves on and everything, it's like people like are still like celebrating these holidays, but forgetting what it's all about.
yeah,
It's kind of like with like Christmas, while Bill, like everybody's talking about like presents and the Christmas tree, and Santa Claus when it's Jesus' birthday, and
yeah,
like it's supposed to be, I don't know, thankful like for your health and family, but also reading the Bible, like I mean reading Jesus' story, because it was mostly about Jesus, and it's almost like people forget that Christmas Day is actually Jesus' birthday.
yeah.
So
Well, I will say this,
yeah.
and I'm not the kind of person that I will recommend movies to people and stuff like this, but I don't think that all the time, even though movies are made with good intentions, are all of them always historically accurate? No. Are they, you know, is some of the maybe the characters and stuff, or the people in that is it exactly like the way it was done? Not really. But I'm gonna tell you something. If you really want to see a portrayal of what Civil War was really like, two movies I recommend people watching is Gods and Generals and Gettysburg. You'll understand the Battle of Gettysburg a lot more if you watch that movie. Because that movie was actually based on a book that was written by historians about Gettysburg. And I was interested, Bill. We appreciate you taking the time to talk about it, even when you're really tired. Oh, thank you, Wells. But so my whole see, I'll be honest with you. Alvin. And even as a person who has, the knowledge of history that I have, you know,
Yeah.
um, I thought I knew everything I knew about the Battle of Gettysburg.
Yeah.
But one thing that sort of kind of opened my eyes up to it was the movie Gettysburg. And when I watched it, I was like, okay, now I kind of see this stuff being brought to light. Now I kind of understand it more. And then when I got the chance to actually go to Gettysburg and tour the battlefield and, you know, take the tours and stuff that they had and read up on the information and just talk to the people in the towns and stuff in the town of Gettysburg and stuff like that, you really start to see what the whole perspective of what that battle and that war was like. You know, you start to see, like, man, it's nothing what they tell you in your history book. It's nothing what they tell you how they perceive it to be. It's something totally different, you know? And in the series North and South, how accurate was that? Well, I'm gonna put it to you like this right here, Elsa. I don't know that it's accurate, but I will say this: that I watched an interview or something with John Jakes, the guy that wrote the books North and South, and he said before he wrote those books that he done an in-depth research of the material that he wrote in that or wrote about in that book, like how the South was and how, you know, life was in the South and everything, and in the North and everything. Is it exactly accurate? I can't say that it is. I would say that it would probably tell you or show you how life really was for some of those places and some of those people. But I will tell you this, like they portray in the movie sometimes, yes, were slaves treated bad? Of course they were. Were slaves whipped? Of course they were. But see, what people don't portray and tell you is not all slaves were treated bad, and not all slaves looked at white people as the devil. Because in a lot of times in the South, when um the black people were given their freedom from, their plantation or whatever, they were given their papers saying you're free now. A lot of them actually turned around and stayed with the families and become sharecroppers and stuff because that was all they knew. That was home to them. Um, do I think that, you know but see, that's the things that they don't tell you. Like in the movie North and South, when they freed the slaves and like the people at Mount Royal, which is the Boone Hall plantation, um, Patrick Swayze family there, they actually gave them land to farm and cultivate and all that stuff, and gave them, because they had been with that family for so long as slaves, that now that they were free, they gave them, you know, a chance to make their own now. But see, that's the things that people don't tell you about the South. Yeah, there were a lot of bad things that went on in the South. I can't deny that. I call myself a Southerner. I take the good with the bad, you know. But they won't tell you that, oh, um, that a lot of the way black people were treated after the Civil War wasn't by Southerners. They were by Northerners. Because think about something. Here's what the Northern people did not understand: that when they freed them people, they had anywhere in the world they wanted to go. a lot of them started going up north. Why do you think a lot of these unions started, like these labor unions started? You wanted to know why? Because they were afraid that these people who like had learned all these skills through slave labor and had all these skills that they couldn't use anymore, that now that they could use to get jobs, people got scared, afraid that they were going to take their jobs away from them. So they started these unions and like, oh, well, you can't work for this company unless you're part of this labor union. Think about it, right? No one, the North can sit there and say that, oh yeah, we fought to free slavery. Well, you didn't treat them no better than the South did. As soon as the war was over, when you realized what you had done, they were like, oh shit. So now they had to fix a problem that they created. And that's how they created it. See, one of the things that's so misconception about people is that how bad, when they won't tell you that the northern people were complicit in slavery too, about how, because at one time this whole country was ran on slavery. It wasn't just the South, but they don't want you to know that. Are there any journals of these soldiers that fought in the Battle of Gettysburg that would tell you the true story of what went down? I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, a lot of soldiers back then kept journals. The problem was, did any of them ever see the light of day? Some of them were buried with the men when they were buried. But the whole thing about it is people, I think the reason why people have the misconception of the Civil War the way it is because when you have a governor of a state, so let's just throw it out here, let's say Alabama, okay? Yeah. And they tell you, oh, well, Alabama's fighting in the Civil War to preserve slavery. Well, first of all, your dumb ass ain't out there on the battlefield fighting. So you really don't know what these people out here are fighting for. You may recruit these people and say, okay, go out here and we're going to start an Alabama regiment, and these Alabamans are going out here and fighting to preserve slavery. How do you know that? Really? Because a lot of these people, you think about something. Every war that's ever been fought, whether it was in this country or anything, is a rich man's conflict and a poor man's fight. Or a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. Who the fuck fights that war? It ain't the rich people. That's just like the government when they send troops to go over to, like, say, Iraq or Iran and Ukraine or something like that, and they say, oh, we're going over here to liberate these people. Who's liberating them people? The American government or the American military? Maybe some of these people don't even want to go over there. So what the fuck are they fighting for? You think about something back during the Vietnam War when the draft was brought about, and a lot of these people went out and fought and got drafted and had to go fight in a war that they didn't want to fight in. So are you telling me that these people went out here and fought to keep the southern Vietnamese or the Viet Cong to liberate southern Vietnam? No. A lot of these fuckers didn't want to go fight, but they had to, because it was either flee the country or go to prison if you dodged the draft. Okay? So a lot of people had to go. Does that mean that they were fighting for that cause? Not really. Some true stories movies can't exactly, country fan. But that's what I'm trying to say. And even though you go to join in the military and you go over and fight for something, that doesn't mean that you're fighting for that cause. Maybe that's just what you're sent to do. People don't get that. So a lot of those people that went out and fought in the American Civil War, these were people who were fighting for what cause? It was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. Like, I give you an example. Like in North and South, right? The movie North and South. The father over the main family there sent his son off to fight in the war. Okay, sent him to West Point to go fight off in the war. Okay, but to come to think about it right now, maybe he went out because he was fighting for his family's legacy and stuff. But in the end, truthfully, what is he really fighting for? Because, and you think about something, okay? So when slavery, when the 13th Amendment was ratified, but before that, when slaves knew that slavery was over, and they started leaving the plantations, and a lot of this was during the Civil War now, okay? If the war was fight over slavery, then why keep fighting, right? That makes no sense. I'd have been like, boys, I'm packing it up and going to the house. Y'all keep fighting if you want to. It wasn't about that. It was a total different cause to begin with. My whole thing is this, right? And I didn't mean to go on this big tangent or whatever it was. I just want people to realize, okay, that when you think about Gettysburg, or you think about any battle of the American Revolution, the American Civil War, any of these things, they were people out there who were Confederacy, who did not fight to keep people in chains. They were people in the North who could have cared less about slavery. All they wanted to do was preserve the Union. Some of them could have cared whether the South had slaves or not. Some of them didn't even fight to free the slaves. Okay? So you got to think about this. And like I said, unless you can dig the dead up and bring them back to life and ask them, what was you on this battlefield for? What were you fighting for? I honestly believe that just about most of them will tell you something different. Because there was a scene in the movie Gettysburg when a couple of these Confederate soldiers had got captured by the Northern Army, and one of the guys said, "Well, why are you fighting this war, Johnny Reb?" Or actually, no, he asked the Union soldier. He's like, "Why are you fighting this war?" He goes, "Well, to free the slaves, of course." And he said, "Well, why are you fighting this war, Johnny Reb?" And he said, "I'm fine." He said, "I ain't fighting for no darkies either way." He said, "I'm fighting for my land." He was fighting to keep what he had. Think about that, right? Because who knows what would have really happened after this? Because even after the Civil War, when we become one nation again, right? I mean, there could have been a lot of penalties that the Northern people could have put on the Southern people, but they didn't. But they still enforced their will upon the Southern people. And that's why a lot of Southerners hold contempt against Yankees today, because at the end of the Civil War, when soldiers returned home, and most of them had nothing to return home to because of Sherman burning the South when he went through. Okay. And then the Northern people come down and establish the public school system and trying to re-educate Southern people right this and trying to make them do a Southern people like, we don't want that. That's not who we are. Okay. Hey fuckers, LOL. Hey Cindy.
Hey, Cindy.
But anyway, right? The whole truth about it is I was just wanting people to think to hello.
Hello.
But
Howdy. Hey,
hey,
Landon.
hey Landon. But I just mainly wanted to do this stream because I wanted to make people aware that when you're out here celebrating Independence Day, don't forget about those 3 days that happened before that in 1863.
1860.
Okay? One of the most important days, or the most important 3 days in American history. Okay? So I just feel like that time
We're damn the devil, Justin.
is forgotten and people are forgetting about it. Well, guys, I hate to cut this short, but I got to be at work tomorrow at 9 a.m., so I got to go to bed and get up early. But y'all have a good night. Okay, Justin, well, I'm fixing to get out of here in a few minutes anyway. So,
Damn, I'll be out my second night.
because I told you this wasn't going to be a long. Actually, this is going longer than I expected it to.
It's just I don't know. I'm surprised Robert didn't make it tonight.
Well, he had something important to do, and I understand that. I mean, the family comes first. You know what I'm saying? But no, I just wanted people to be aware of that and just kind of think about those things.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I can go stream. If you want to go stream, Sandy, you can. That's cool. But I'm fixing to go to bed. I'm tired. I've had a long day, and I just wanted to talk about something right quick that I think that was important that I think people have.
Well, that's the thing. I'm actually gonna be eating soon, but I don't know if one of you guys want to stream tomorrow or something.
Yeah, but
I'm always up for another stream tomorrow. So.
Tomorrow's July 2nd.
Yeah.
Second day battle of Gettysburg.
Oh.
It's always remember the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July.
Yeah.
The 3 days.
To be honest, tomorrow would have worked perfectly too for you to be talking about this as well.
Oh, and Robert just shows up.
Wait. Everybody showed up at the exact same time.
No, Cindy, I had worked and then I had to come home and help my brother-in-law do some stuff, and I'm just tired. I'm just beat. That's all.
Yeah, well, not to mention I had to run errands earlier today as well, so that's why I was thinking maybe tomorrow would be best.
Right,
so if anybody wants to stream tomorrow.
Well, y'all can stream if you want to. I don't know what my plans are tomorrow. I know I got to finish helping my brother-in-law with this hot water heater thing, and so I don't know how long that's going to take, whatever. So, and depending on how that goes is what I'll probably base my day around tomorrow. So
I was like, your timing sucks, people.
I know, right?
Yeah, Cindy, Landon, and Robert all came in the same time, and then Justin went to bed.
Yeah. So
That's kind of
That's
funny.
it, man. And like I said, this stream will be up for people who want to watch it, man, and go back
So you're
and
gonna
get
keep
it.
it?
But
Keep
yeah,
it?
it's gonna be up on YouTube. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's nothing that I don't see if there's any information in there that would be they would consider misinformation, because I just believe that that's my opinion. And no matter what people might think, the Battle of Gettysburg did happen, and it was in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July, 1863.
Yeah.
And that's mainly what I'm.
I'll kick that old man's ass if he leaves now.
Too damn
Oh,
bad,
that's,
man.
that's
I'm
what
tired.
Robert
I
said.
told you it wasn't going to be a long. Actually, this was longer than I wanted to be on camera.
Yeah, yeah.
I intended to be like an hour.
Yeah. I was about to say, how about them apples, Roberta? Happy about it?
He likes sour. He likes the sour apples. That's the thing about Roberta.
Oh yeah. Oh, he loves the sour apples.
Yeah.
I was like, how about them apples? Somebody said, Robert, I'll come in if you stop them. Robert said, you didn't tell me anything, old man.
I didn't tell you anything. What? I told you I was streaming tonight.
So, Robert, did you just get back home or something? I assume he got back home, and that's why he's like, it's like, what the hell, man?
Not home.
Oh, okay. Robert's not home yet. You said not home, Cindy.
But so
yeah, that's all you told me. Thank you very much. I said, yes, you did say it won't be a long stream.
yeah.
Robert said, no, I'm at my sister's.
Yeah.
Oh, he's at his sister's.
Are you at your one sister's house? If so, tell her I said hey. But anyway, but that's it, guys. That's all I wanted to talk about. And if y'all guys want to go and stream or something, cool. I have no problems with that. Y'all want to hang out or whatever, y'all go right on ahead. I'm fixing to take my ass to bed because I'm tired.
Really? You don't want to hang
No,
out with your brother?
I'm barely hanging on right now, but because I told y'all I was going to do this.
Robert said, nope, Brittany, which you don't know.
Okay, well.
Damn, he's at his sister's house.
You still say hey for me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
She would like use this William White person.
All right. But, so, yeah. Or if y'all want to start a stream when Robert gets home, that's cool too. But I'm fixing to go. So y'all have an awesome night and a good night.
Yeah, it's 4:32 for me, so I need to get some sleep myself. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Elsa. I'm surprised you even made it because I literally was actually scared that because I know you were originally going to set your alarm for like 8. I honestly didn't know if you were going to make it to a 9 o'clock stream or not.
Awesome, Robert. Well, yeah. All right, guys.
Hey, even though she don't know you, LOL.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like I said, I'm gonna go and get out of here and go to bed. And y'all go stream with Cindy. She wants to stream. Go stream with her. That's what y'all should go do. Hang out with her for a little bit.
FYI, a pickup truck with an American flag. Let's go, Brandon flag. Just drove by.
There you go. Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon.
But so yeah, I didn't really intend for this to go this long, but for anybody interested in what I had to say, go back and watch the stream. I think you'll find it interesting.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
All right, well, I got to go, and so I'll talk to y'all later. And if for some of y'all, I don't talk to you between now and Monday, happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. Hope you have fun, watch fireworks, eat hot dogs, drink beer, do whatever it is you want to do. But remember, there are a lot greater sacrifices than people understand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I said today my Canada Day.
cool. Nice.
And that's how it goes.
So,
But yeah, and that's the truth of the matter as well. So.
yep. So, y'all guys have fun.
Yeah.
I'll talk to y'all
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, good night, Chris. Good night, Cindy. And good night, Elsa.
Good night,
And
Cindy, Chris,
Landon.
everybody, Robert, Landon. If you're in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
watching whatever, goodbye. Na 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 na
Na,
na na
na,
na na. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye.
You
Na na
goodbye.
na 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 na. I'm gone now, yeah. Hitting the button.
Oh no, we're going. Yeah. And we gone.
In the